The World Series is set. Blue Jays versus Dodgers. Two teams built very differently, but both loaded with talent. Meanwhile, the Pirates face a thin free agent outfield market and must decide how to fill key roster holes. Let's handle all that and more next on Locked On Pirates.
You are Locked On Pirates, your daily Pittsburgh Pirates podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Pirates. I'm Gary Morgan. As many of you know, I've been covering the Pirates for best part of the last decade, at least. And today, we're diving into the World Series matchup, the Pirates outfield situation, and why WRC Plus matters more than ever when evaluating hitters. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the app today. So, the Dodgers and the Blue Jays is how it ended up. All of the consternation, all of the thoughts, all of the dreams of all the other teams have been dashed on the way here. Dramatic fashion, actually, for the Blue Jays to get here, winning Game 7 against the Mariners 4-3. Can't get much tighter than that. Huge home run from George Springer. Vladdy Jr. was really great in this series. But these two teams' regular season records, Dodgers were 93 and 69. The Blue Jays were 94 and 68. Dodgers swept the Brewers in the NLCS to get here. The Blue Jays won the ALCS in 7 games over the Mariners. This could matter at least as far as like having rested pitchers, just how quickly the Dodgers dispatched the Blue Jays versus how hard it was for the Blue Jays. But the Blue Jays could stay hot and the Dodgers could get rusty while they're sitting around too. I mean, there's always a give and take when you end up sweeping a team. I remember back in the early 90s being nervous every time the Penguins would sweep a series on their way to the Stanley Cup because you never knew how they were going to come back out of, that time off. Obviously the payrolls are different. Dodgers approximately 350 million, Blue Jays approximately 190 million. Dodgers defending champs. Blue Jays first appearance since 1993. Game 1 starters are probably going to be Blake Snell. And then I don't think the Blue Jays have announced yet, but it seems likely it would be either Shane Bieber or Trey Yasevich. Shohei Ohtani had those 3 home runs in the NLCS Game 4 and through 6 innings too. I mean, unbelievable performance, arguably the greatest performance ever in a playoff series. Freddie Freeman, certainly in a playoff game, that was insane what he did. Freddie Freeman he's at 295, 24 home runs this year. I mean, probably not the greatest Freddie Freeman we've ever seen, but as usual, the playoffs show up, and so does he. So does players like Will Smith. Underrated, probably one of the most underrated players in the game, Will Smith. He's an excellent defensive catcher. He does a wonderful job with all of the different pitchers that he has to handle, and he can hit. Blue Jays have Vladimir Guerrero Jr. Obviously, he's having a great season, 292, 23 home runs, which is a little down for him, but he's been overall a more productive player. 280 WRC plus in the playoffs so far, 137 for the season. So we'll talk about WRC plus a little bit later on. Alejandro Kirk. Anybody that is familiar with the Blue Jays knows this guy who just defies everything about being an athlete. He certainly doesn't look like one, but man, he can move. He's real good behind the plate, legitimately. He hit 284 this year, 15 home runs, 116 WRC plus, elite defense. George Springer has been clutch pretty much all postseason, but especially in that Game 7. The Dodgers rotation, Snell, Yamamoto, Glasnow, Ohtani, it's been dominant in October. 2 earned runs in 28.2 2 innings pitched versus the Brewers. Yeah. I mean, they whitewashed the Brewers. It was absolutely a one-sided affair. Blue Jays rotation, Bieber, Gaussman, Scherzer, Yasevich, solid. It's less dominant. It's certainly less world-renowned, but it should be good enough, especially if the Blue Jays continue to hit the way they have. Both of these bullpens have been a little shaky in moments, but the Dodgers definitely have more depth. They should probably pull out on this one. The Dodgers, let's see, this season had 244 home runs. That was good for second in all of baseball. They've scored 825 runs. That was second in all of baseball. They struck out 1,505. That is first. And their ERA of 3.95 is 17th. The Blue Jays, I would say, are probably a little more balanced offensively, a little bit less power, but they can beat you in other ways. And they have really strong defensive metrics just about all around the diamond. And something that a lot of you have wanted to bring up to me and asked for my comments on, so I feel like I have to give it, is Andrew Heaney and Isaiah Kiner-Falefa getting a shot at the World Series. And I can't describe this any other way than the way the comments are reading to me. Predominantly very negative about the Pirates, really, because of it. Listen, Andrew Heaney, I didn't want him anymore. I mean, like, I was more than happy when they finally decided to DFA him. I would tell you, like, they should have traded him, but the way that he was performing around the All-Star break, I can honestly say I don't think anybody was interested. And the fact that he fell all the way to the Dodgers before being selected off waivers should probably tell you something about the market there was for him. I mean, there was roughly 25 teams that wouldn't take a free swing at the guy, like, even for help even down the stretch. I mean, the Dodgers did. They're familiar with him. They've had him before. They've used him out of the bullpen. They know how to make him effective. And there was no marriage there. They didn't have to, like, carry him into the playoffs if it didn't work out. You know, Andrew Heaney did what Andrew Heaney does. And had the Pirates transitioned him to the bullpen earlier and not tried to get so many innings out of him, they probably could have turned him into a successful reliever as well. That's why I was happy they signed him. I thought, actually, the way the team was setting up with all these kids coming up, Andrew Heaney was a perfect guy to have because he had experience as a starter. He had experience as a bullpen guy. And I figured as the season played out, he would just transition into the bullpen. Well, they waited way too long for that to take place and drug their feet like they do with so many things. And as far as IKF, I mean, he didn't want traded. He wanted to stay in Pittsburgh. In fact, he wanted to re-sign with Pittsburgh. But famously, Bob Nutting said no to an extension that was being bantered about. Ben Cherington kept him, probably trying to keep his job by getting the team to achieve something. But IKF is in a perfect role in Toronto right now. He shouldn't be seen as a starter. He should be seen as a great utility player that you can pop in when you have an injury and need help. And they had an injury. You got Bo Bichette down, and it's wonderful to be able to stick a guy like IKF in there. And he can give you a quality at bat. He can give you a great pinch hit if you just need a base runner. There's nobody here that should be saying that IKF was a bad player. But what I've been saying about IKF all season, he's probably a decent piece on a really good team. The problem is you can't really be a decent piece in a role like that on a team that doesn't have all their holes filled, because then you become counted on. Then you're an everyday player. And I just don't think IKF is an everyday player. I really don't. And I certainly don't begrudge either of those guys. I mean, congratulations. I hope you both, reach success in this playoff. I mean, they obviously both can't win, but sure would like for one of them to. It's not going to hurt me. They're former players. I'm happy that they're doing well. I always am. I don't care about this stuff nearly the way some of you do, and I realize that I'm gonna have to talk about things I don't care about on occasion. That's part of doing a show. But these types of things to me just feel like reaching, especially when inevitably it gets turned around into a mistake that was made by the Pirates here or there. Well, yeah, but the mistake was made like at the deadline. And the mistake I think I'm seeing right now is people believing because somebody claimed these guys off waivers that there was trade to be made. I don't believe there was. I just don't believe there was. I don't think there was a market for these guys. IKF probably could have been traded. I think you would have gotten like a reliever back or a lottery ticket. And yes, they probably should have gone ahead and done that, if only because he's not really a true fit here, like I said. But I am talking about a guy that might play here in 4 years or something that I would have probably gotten in return. I guess at the end of the day, man, I just don't care. I just don't care. Sorry if that upsets you, but it just doesn't bother me or really raise any kind of red flags that I didn't already have. I can scrutinize not trading those guys without being upset or thinking that they're the driving force that got these teams to the World Series. It's certainly not the case. It's certainly not the case. Now, IKF, I can say legitimately probably did help his team, if only because they lost a star and he filled in admirably. That's what you want to happen. Let's take a break. And when we come back, let's do an AMA about outfielders, specifically free agent outfielders. It's time to start talking about that stuff. It's not going to be a pleasant sight. Most people can't name all their financial accounts or even what they're worth, whether it's 401ks, properties, or investments. And when you don't have the full picture, you can end up leaving money on the table. That's where that's why there's Monarch Money. It's an all-in-one personal finance tool that brings your entire financial life together in one clean, easy-to-use interface on your laptop or your phone. Monarch does the heavy lifting for you. You can link all your accounts in minutes, see clear data, visuals, get smart categorization for your spending, and finally feel in control of your money without ever touching a spreadsheet. It helps organize, especially streaming apps. There are so many of them, and they all have different times of the month where the money comes out, and they'll increase the prices on you without notifying you necessarily, or if they do, it's in an email you ignored. That Monarch really helps with all this stuff. Don't let financial opportunities slip through the cracks. Use code LOCKEDONMLB at monarchmoney.com in your browser for half off your first year. That's 50% off your first year at monarchmoney.com with code LOCKEDONMLB. This episode is brought to you by Prize Picks, the daily fantasy app where making the right call can actually pay off. You and I make decisions every single day, but on Prize Picks, being right means cashing in. With football back, Prize Picks is the simplest and fastest way to get in on the action. Just pick more or less than 2 to 6 player projections, and you can turn your takes into real prizes, all in less than 60 seconds. I've been playing Prize Picks a little bit lately. It's such a fun way to stay locked in on the season, no matter what's going on, even if you aren't in touch. Sometimes I do it on the NBA just because I feel like it. Download the Prize Picks app today and use code LOCKEDONMLB to get $50 in lineups after you play your first $5 lineup. That's code LOCKEDONMLB for $50 in lineups after your first $5 play. Prize Picks. It's good to be right. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Make sure you smash that subscribe button and drop me a like, comment, share, do all that cool stuff for me, please. Thank you so much. Another great AMA question came in here. This is about outfielders. Any chance Andujar returns to be at least a short side platoon? Hayes looks like a platoon player. He's talking about Austin Hayes. Looks like a platoon option too. Maybe first base time for both as well. Starling Marte had a 112 WRC plus last year, but mostly as DH. Is he worth the risk to try in the outfield? For what it's worth, I think they'll add via trade. I mean, it's a good question and a good opportunity to talk about really what I see as a pain point out there, the free agent board for the outfield. Pirates need an outfielder bad. We know probably they're not going to be shopping in the top echelon, right? You're not getting Kyle Schwarber, you're not getting Kyle Tucker, so you can get those dreams out your head. But Miguel Andujar, sure, he could return as a short side platoon. And the problem is the Pirates had him. And I got to be honest, I don't think he's changed an awful lot from when he was here. For whatever reason, they didn't like using him. They didn't like using him in the outfield. They didn't like using him at first base. They didn't want to use him at third. You have to be willing to play him somewhere. Unless you want to bring him back as a DH. Now, if you want to bring him back as a DH, okay. But again, I think you got Kutch here. I think you have to be willing to play him in the outfield if you bring him back. Austin Hayes, solid platoon option. I thought he was pretty good for the Reds. He's real good against lefties. I would just remind people the Pirates faced fewer lefties than anyone in the entire league last year. So I don't think that I want to spend a whole ton of time trying to fortify my offense to face something that you're seeing less than like a quarter of the time. I'm not 100% sure that's the best use of it. And I also just want to kind of insert here. We kind of got to stop selling first base as some kind of empty hole that we got to plug. They have no fewer than 10 options to play right-handed first base games if they have to have it. They've got that already. I don't need to bring anyone else in and care about that capability. I just don't. And I need to stop pretending that everyone has it too. Austin Hayes is a guy that has played first base, but he's an outfielder. And if you bring him in, that's probably where they're going to use him. Trade targets to me are more likely. And I'm going to go through why. I think the free agent market is really thin here in the outfield. I've taken out those top couple that we talked about, but I want to just talk through what I see as realistic, and then I want to talk about why what I see as realistic might not be so realistic. Okay. Cody Bellinger, he could opt out. I've heard he's going to opt out from his Yankees contract. Now, you don't opt out of a contract unless you think you can get more than you were getting. He may or may not be right, but I think he's going to get an offer. Trent Grisham, probably going to get a qualifying offer from the Yankees, which probably rules him out. I'm not saying it makes him a Yankee for sure, but it's going to be hard for some other team to come in there and be willing to give up the draft pick, and all that stuff. Cedric Mullins, he's fast. He plays good defense. Left-handed bat, but he's definitely falling off. He's 31 years old. He can play out center field. I love that capability. I wish he wasn't left-handed as far as that goes, because I think, a natural platoon in center field for O'Neal Cruz that isn't Alexander Canario might be a nice thing to have. Mike Yastrzemski, he's platoon friendly. He's a veteran. I don't think he's going to blow your socks off. But that's an exciting one. And then like a flyer you might want to take, somebody like Eloy Jimenez. He's more bat than glove, but there's upside there if he's healthy, which he hasn't been. So It's at least a couple options, right? And I don't think I'm leaving a whole lot of guys off of the list that could or should be considered. The thing is, when you really look through the available free agents in the outfield, um, the first thing I realize is a lot of the league is going to feel that they need an outfielder, right? Many of the teams that these players are leaving are going to feel that they need an outfielder. And I think what that's going to cause, because there aren't a whole lot of real rich targets here, I think what that's going to cause is for some of these mid-tier guys like Cody Bellinger and Trent Grisham and Cedric Mullins in particular, and even Starling Marte, Austin Hayes, those types. I think what you're going to see is those guys getting overpaid and overvalued a little bit. And don't get me wrong, I already told you the Pirates need to overpay. They need to embrace overpaying. They need to jump on the market early and offer overpayments if they're going to win something like this. You know, you're not going to win a guy like Cody Bellinger or even Mike Yastrzemski unless you go out and you offer more. You know, there's going to be people going for their services. There will. If the Pirates want any of these names, they're going to have to do things that are out of their character. I agree with the question asker here. I think trade is probably the best way. But I would say if you're planning on that, it better be to a team that already has a perception of an overflow in the outfield. Because frankly, if they have to turn around and go and get one because they move one out, well, I think you're basically asking them to solve a problem that you just decided is unsolvable. You know, so I think the free agent market in the outfield, first, lower your expectations. There just aren't a lot there. And like for instance, like what could be considered a decent signing in this poll this year could very well be something like Tommy Pham. And I think we've all decided that we don't think that's good enough to be the starter. It's certainly not enough to make this team, you know, measurably better than it was this year. You know, by bringing in the same thing. Those are the options. I don't like them. You're right to call it out. I don't think outfield is a good situation in free agency. And I do believe they're going to have to make some kind of a creative trade, or they're going to have to trust their internal development, whether you want to hear that or not. You know, I mean, if you are going to give Connor Griffin and Esmeralyn Valdez a chance to make this team, and I mean a legit chance to make this team, that might be the only way you can even dream of approaching a season without doing something really big here as far as a trade goes. I think you're going to have to address it elsewhere, or you're going to have to trust your internal development. I'm not sure they can get away with that this year. I'm really not. Let's take another break. When we come back, let's talk about WRC Plus as a advanced stat because, well, I've referenced it about 1,800 times on the way here in this episode. So I think it deserves some explanation. The NFL season is here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. FanDuel, it makes sports interesting. I just love watching the NFL and putting all kinds of silly prop bets all over the place. In fact, I just won money the other day when Trevor Lawrence got tripped up in the backfield and somehow stumbled for a touchdown. And it was like the most ridiculous way to win ever. I took a lot of pleasure in it anyway. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com to download the FanDuel app today and get started. Guys, you've probably heard of Viagra or Cialis. Maybe you've even tried them. But if you're looking for something beyond the usual pill, it's time to meet Rugiet Go Long. That's exactly where Rugiet Go Long comes in. It isn't just another ED pill, it's a total game changer for confidence. The effects can last up to 36 hours. That's confidence all day, all night, and even into the next day. Ready to level up your confidence in the bedroom? Head to rugiet.com and use promo code LOCKEDONMLB for 15% off your first order. That's rugiet.com, Rugiet. Promo code LOCKEDONMLB. Make sure to use our code so they know we sent you. Hey, welcome back to Locked On Pirates. Running along in this episode because I couldn't shut my mouth in segment 2, so let's get right into WRC Plus. In MLB WRC Plus, weighted runs created plus is a comprehensive hitting stack that measures a player's offensive performance by adjusting for league and ballpark factors. You hear that a lot with these really advanced stats or the plus stats. You tend to get into a lot of things designed to eliminate or factor in the differences between ballparks and leagues. A WRC plus of 100 is league average. This is a lot like what we were talking about the other day with the other advanced stat, right? Now, all these plus numbers tend to be these scales of 100 where 100 is league average. Values above 100 indicate above average performance. Values below 100 indicate below average performance. It's considered the most accurate rate statistic for evaluating hitting because it accounts for the value of each offensive outcome, like singles, doubles, and home runs, and normalizes them to a common scale. So, how does it work? Well, the statistic starts with runs created, where each offensive outcome is weighted to accurately reflect its contribution to scoring runs. There's a park adjustment. After that, it adjusts for the specific ballpark a player plays in, as some stadiums are more hitter friendly than others due to factors like dimensions and altitude and wind, and you know all of them. Then the league adjusts. The statistic adjusts for league average in a given year, accounting for changes in the run scoring environment. In other words, if Major League Baseball did piss with the balls this year, that's reflected in WRC plus. Get it? So it's not based on how things were last year, it's how things are right now. A WRC plus of 125 means a player created 25% more runs than the average player, while a WRC plus of 80 means they created 20% fewer runs than the average player. So earlier when we talked about like Starling Marte with his 112 WRC plus, well, that's 12% better than average. So, and that's even if he was a DH. It has nothing to do with how he plays defense. If he plays defense, it's all based on how he hits. That's the gist for WRC plus. It's very simple. It's not simple like if you actually had to calculate it yourself. And there's ways that we can drill down deeper so that you really understand the factors that they place on ballparks or field conditions or even weather. Sometimes I've heard will used to get involved. I think they've eliminated that now because it was just getting too confusing. But WRC Plus is a valuable tool. Use it if you can. You're going to see it a lot more often. It's more valuable than WAR to me. I just feel like WAR is just too subjective. And WRC Plus is a lot more fact-based. And it feels like it's a lot more fair to compare too. This one is designed to be able to like span across eras, and it does work. don't 100% know if the formula can really understand things like the Polo Grounds, right? I'm just, you know what I mean? Like different ballparks that were different. I'm not 100% sure it can account for. You know, like Wrigley Field is a field that I think is difficult for WRC plus, if only because if the wind's blowing in, it's probably one of the better pitcher ballparks in the league. If the wind's blowing out, it's probably the worst pitcher's ballpark in the league, right? So you have like what I think creates a very difficult to evaluate ballpark situation. And because it's just a factor of how it plays with the wind in or out, I think it creates a false sense that it's a very fair and average ballpark, where on a given night it isn't, in one way or another. PNC can be like that too. If the wind's blowing out to right over the Clemente wall, you're going to hit that jet stream. You can pop balls up there all day. I mean, we've seen O'Neill Cruz hit literal pop-ups that get there, right? So, yeah. The World Series is a reminder of how different team building paths can lead to October success. For the Pirates, smart decisions, especially in the outfield, will be key this offseason. Whether it's Andujar, Hayes, or a trade, WRC Plus helps us see who's truly worth the risk. And remember, we're serious about Pirates baseball because somebody has to be.